standing firm, hold the secret of inner power. Give us when tested strength to endure. Father, we thank you, your joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may see.
Stars and a message of light through eternity. Lord, when in darkness your radiance we see. Mother, we thank you, your joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may see. So soft and fragile, stay fragrant, help us to the ground. Very rest live for parents, for in kindness love is found. Father, we thank you, your joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may see.
Mountains remote and still, lifted higher, worlds unseen. So may our lives be soaring and serene.
Mother, we thank you, your joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may see.
Rivers seek passage unhindered by rock or tree. So may our lives flow steadfast toward the sea.
Mother, we thank you, your joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may see. Mother, we thank you, your joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may see.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Mother's Day to those of you who are biological mothers, and to all of you as children of the Divine Mother, as instruments of her love and service. Welcome to Ananta Village for our Sunday service. We have guests from the Mother-Daughter Retreat here at the Expanding Light, so welcome to you especially, and to all our visitors. I'd like to read from Rays of the One Light by Swami Kriyananda. This is parallel passages from the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. One of the most famous stories in the Gospels is that of Martha and Mary. Jesus, visiting the house of Martha, was teaching while her sister Mary sat at his feet, absorbing his divine love and wisdom. Martha, meanwhile, busied herself with serving her guests and was upset with Mary for not helping her. "Lord," she cried, "doesn't it matter to you that my sister has left me to do all this serving alone? Please ask her to help me." "Martha, Martha," Jesus answered, "thou art careful and troubled about many things. But one thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen that good part which shall not be taken away from her." This story is classic, for Martha's complaint is very understandable and not, on the surface of it, spiritually wrong. Jesus may well have told Mary to get up and help her. We don't really know that he didn't, considerate as he always was of others' needs. But the teaching here doesn't concern the obvious dilemma of devotees to work for God or to spend all one's time in prayer. It concerns, rather, the attitude of the mind. Jesus didn't tell Martha, "Martha, you are doing too much." He told her, rather, "You are letting your work affect your inner peace." That was the contrast. Not work versus contemplation, but restless preoccupation versus peaceful absorption under all circumstances. As it says in the Bhagavad Gita, the 2nd chapter, actions performed under the influence of desire are greatly inferior to those which are guided by wisdom. Happiness eludes people when they act from self-interest. Seek shelter, therefore, in the equanimity of wisdom. Thus, through the Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
I'd like to read from Yogananda's Whispers from Eternity, and this is in the Temple of United Hearts. Divine Mother, may I feel thy heart throbs in my own heart, thy joy in my happiness, thy wise direction in all my activity, thy spirit in my soul. Divine Mother, I lay all the flowers of my love at thy feet of eternity. Oh, open wide the flowers of my budding devotion, and release thy fragrance, that it may spread from my soul to the souls of others, ever whispering of thee. I pray to behold my love reflected in others. In the light of that greater love, may I behold thine unveiled face of perfect compassion. May I behold my true self in others, that I perceive thee ever enthroned in our united hearts. At the heart of my whispered prayers, I feel stirring thy silent whispers. In the light of my burning candle of devotion, I behold at last thy sacred blaze of perfect love. O Divine Mother, unite our hearts as one heart, so that on the sacred altar of united hearts we may find thine omnipresence enthroned forever. I'd like to welcome all of you as well, and thank you for today bringing your deep devotion. When I was in my last year in college, I spent about 4 months or so in Ecuador in South America, and on an overseas program. And I was, for a little part of that time, living with a family in the city of Cuenca. And it was a family, there were about 3 generations in that house. And it was in a suburban area. And they shuffled around to give me my own room downstairs. And I didn't have many things with me. I just had a few things. But on the table next to my bed, I kept a very small little copy of the Gita. It was given to my mother when she was a little girl. And the picture of Yogananda that appears on the autobiography of a yogi. And one by one, they came down to see my room and make sure that I was situated and had everything I needed. And at least a couple of times they looked around, and as I said, there wasn't much, and their eyes landed on that picture, and they said, "Is that your mother?" And Ananta was sharing with me the other day, was reminding me when this was before we met, and he was driving his aunt around, and he had a picture, the same picture on his dash in the car. And his aunt said to him, "Is that your girlfriend?" and I know many of you have had this experience or heard of this, but it came to mind because, when we see that picture, it's quite possible, this family that I was with or other people, they see the long hair, they see the soft, round face, they see the lustrous Bengali eyes, and maybe there is that feminine resemblance, but it's much more there that is that attraction. It's much more, whether conscious or unconscious, what they are responding to is that divine mother quality, that aspect of God that is divine mother. And that comes into perfect balance whether we live and exist in these male bodies or female bodies. I mean, whatever it is outwardly, Master says the soul is androgynous. We have no sex. And when we come to that place of perfect union with God, it's a perfect blending of those two. And so we see the masculine, we see the feminine, and we see the spirit beyond that. And again, whether people are conscious or unconscious of that, I think that's what they recognize, and not just in Yogananda, but in others of our line and in many of the great saints and masters. And so, Yogananda's mission, he said in his own words, I've come to interpret the scripture, the Gita, the Bible. I've come to bring Kriya Yoga to the West. But less oftentimes we think of that very great part of his mission. Swamiji talks about it a lot. He says that a very elemental part of Yogananda's mission is to bring this focus, this attention, this reawakening again to worshiping God in the aspect of Divine Mother. It's very important for our times. It's very important for all times, and especially it's important now. Kriyananda talks about his first meeting with Yogananda. Many of you will recall that story, and he reads Autobiography of a Yogi, and he gets on a bus and he travels out within 24 hours. He's on a bus traveling to California, and he lands at Encinitas. He's told that he can't possibly see Yogananda for some time. He can't possibly enter into the work there for a considerable length of time. And he is told that Yogananda's in Hollywood, and so he travels there to see him. And again, he is told there that he needs to wait. And he is resolving this in his own mind and trying to come to terms with it. And a woman comes forth and says, well, since you've come so far, let me just see if he might be able to see you. And things transpire such that he is able to see Yogananda. And Yogananda says to him, I'm not seeing you because you've come a long distance. A couple of weeks ago, a lady from Sweden came, and I didn't see her. I'm seeing you because Divine Mother told me to see you. And Kriyananda had just read Autobiography of a Yogi, so he probably caught that, his attention was probably drawn to that concept of Divine Mother. But here he was directly experiencing it for the first time in this incarnation. And he was mesmerized. He was so taken. Here was this individual whom he, in an instant, felt to be his guru. But this individual, this great soul, was in conversation with Divine Mother. And there wasn't, it seemed, a thing that he would do or think or act out without the consent of Divine Mother. And this thrilled him, this touched him deeply. And Yogananda, he put that out there for us. That relationship wasn't behind closed doors. We read his writings, we hear his talks, and in parts he'll be talking to Divine Mother. The dialogue, he's talking to us and then he's talking to Divine Mother, and it's this responsive two-way conversation, and he lets us right in there. And this was Kriyananda's experience, and it swept him up. And it's a very, very important part of Master's mission, a very, very important part. Look at this world we live in. It so much needs Divine Mother consciousness. So much. It's just, there's such commotion going on. Every day we hear something that is disruptive in a big way, that is disturbing, that is compromising. People shuffled around, people by thousands, tens of thousands, leaving the planet in an instant. There's just a lot of commotion, and that consciousness more than ever needs to come into an awareness of Divine Mother. It's not a soft or a sweet or a wimpy kind of love. It's very powerful. And when we listen to Yogananda, when we share that experience with him, we can feel that incredible power, a power that's transforming just by the gaze, just by the look in the eyes. There's that wonderful story of St. Francis, and he was away from the monastery for a little bit. And there were some robbers in the nearby town who were wreaking havoc there, and they were being chased by the villagers out of the city. And they were seeking sanctuary and ran to the monastery, and there they were received by one of the brothers. And the brother said, well, not received. The brother said, get out of here. How dare you come here seeking sanctuary after what you've done? There's no place for you here. And he kicked them out and was very mean to them. And in a certain sense, perhaps justifiably so, but in reality, not at all. And when Francis came back and he heard of this, he sent that brother, he said, by the very vow of obedience that you have taken, go out there and get them right now. And he brought them back, and when they came back, Francis looked at them, and he said, why do you live the way you do? That's all he said, or at least that's all that's related through the story. And their hearts melted, and they became brothers. They joined that work. They were completely transformed in that instance by the power of that love. So it's a very powerful love, the love of God, the love of the Divine Mother, amidst that softness, amidst that sweetness. It's incredibly transforming. And it is said that they died saintly, those very same individuals. And so it's very important, a very important element in our world today, that we expand on that consciousness, that we build on that consciousness of Divine Mother. Swami Kriyananda wrote recently a children's story. It's called The Time Tunnel. And I won't go into it very much, but essentially there's these two little boys, and they discover and walk through this tunnel of time. And on the other side, they meet an acquaintance there, and this acquaintance becomes their friend. And together the three of them travel. They travel through time, forward and back, past and future, seeing people in different times, the way they behave, the way they live, the societies they've created, the good things and the not so good things that they've done. And on one of their visits, they're visiting the lost civilization of Atlantis. And they're moving around in this society and discovering all kinds of things that they're seeing and for the first time. And at the end of their visit, they always kind of put their heads, their notes together and compare what it is they have experienced and why they are seeing what they see. And the friend of these two little boys, Don and Bobby, their friend Hansel, he says to them, they're talking about just what they've seen and how sterile it is and how intellectually based it is. And Hansel says, if we go on in this vein, everything just becomes robot-like. And then by extension, that's how we become toward one another. And so, again, just the importance of that Divine Mother consciousness, the importance of that heart element, and that understanding on our part that we can't go forward on the path. We can't live a better life unless we become more and more centered in the heart, unless we live there more profoundly. I remember many years ago, it was my first pilgrimage to India. And after traveling with my Guru Bhais from Ananta, some of us took a seclusion in Rishikesh for a week or so. And we landed there, for those of you who've been there, at the station in Haridwar. And it's like any place in India, and a lot of bustle and noise and filth and poverty. And I went in to use the restroom, and as I came in, right to my left and on the floor in the corner was this crummy little blanket and this little child sitting there. And her mother was standing by her side. And when I left, I rinsed my hands and looked around for the elusive towel, more out of habit than anything else. Nothing like that exists in India. No paper towel, no cloth. And I was standing there and just sort of trying to soak in this scene. Clearly that was where they lived, day and night. That was their spot, their home, their livelihood. And she comes up to me and takes both my hands, and she just took one at a time, and she had this, I don't remember, tissue, rag, whatever, And she just started wiping, patting my hand dry. And she turned it over, she patted my hand dry, and she took the other hand, same thing, very slowly, very deliberately. Everything in me had to just slow down and be conscious. And when she was done, and the whole time she just looked at me. And I know, when we go to India, when we go to a place like this of such extreme poverty, we're warned because people, they see you're from the West, and that's a big flag, and they're going to try to get that coin from you or that extra rupee note or whatever it is. But that wasn't at all what was going on. It was just pure divine mother consciousness. And here she was. Look at, she lived there. It's her livelihood. Her child was being reared in that environment, in a bathroom, in a dirty, filthy bathroom in India. And here is that divine mother consciousness. I hold that memory as such a powerful teaching that consciousness can be with us at any time, in any place. Swamiji says the greatest service we can offer to God is the simple expression of love. And to keep in that dialogue with Divine Mother. This story about Martha, Yogananda himself tells a similar instance. It happens to us all. We're all vacillating between this Martha and Mary consciousness, and we're in the world and we're in God, and then we're back in the world again. And, it's just we're all trying to hold that consciousness all the time, and we keep coming home to it by thinking of Divine Mother. Swamiji says, think of Divine Mother. It'll help us to cultivate devotion. It'll help us to feel that presence. It'll help us to feel that love. It'll make it easier. It'll move the energy in that direction. And Master, he said, one time he was speaking about World Brotherhood colonies, and he was getting so fired up, so charged and animated about them, and so excited about all the elements and what it meant and what it could mean for civilization. And he said, I was getting so caught up in it that for a moment I was swept away in my consciousness. And I felt apart from Divine Mother. And he said, then I chanted, and immediately she came back. And so it's being in that consciousness, being in that dialogue. Swamiji says, don't let yourself step beyond that point of love for Divine Mother while in activity. And if we do, then sing that chant, say Divine Mother's name, and right away, he said, right away, it comes back. One time he was in Rishikesh, also in seclusion, trying to take a seclusion, and he went to meditate, and he was overwhelmed with just negativity and doubt and just everything. I can't do this, I can't go deep, I can't know God. He was just assailed by all these kinds of thoughts. And he remembered Master's words to pray to Divine Mother, naughty or good, I am your child. You must receive me. And that's the love of Divine Mother. That's the love of Divine Mother. It's so encompassing, it's so full. And when we have that experience, we have right perspective. We have right action. I remember one time when I was growing up and my mother, I don't remember the age, but I think I was at least in high school or so. And she came into my room and I was sick, nothing drastic, probably a really bad cold or a flu, but I was feeling totally crummy and a little bit sorry for myself. And laying there in bed, and she came in and she said, and I was awake, and she said, I wish I could be in your place for you so you didn't have to feel this. And that power, it wasn't that she was trying to take away from me some experience, but that power, it made me want to feel strong. It made me want to feel well. It made me want to be in the position where I could offer that to somebody else. That power is incredible. Swamiji said that the impetus for any upliftment of consciousness depends greatly upon women and feminine consciousness. And it's not to distinguish men and women in the way of our faults or greatness, or to make one of us better than the other, to expand on that and understand that we all have both of those aspects. And that that feminine energy within all of us, whether we're in a male or female body, that's what is so needed. That is what is so necessary at this time, that we offer ourselves to express those qualities. When Ananta and I were living in Sacramento, when we first went there, we were living in a house with a lot of other people. And we were told when we got there to be really cautious about parking lots of cars across the street in front of our neighbor's house. Our neighbor, we never saw our neighbor. The curtains were always drawn day or night, presumably by personal preference. And we really did try. But at night, if we had satsang, or on a weekend if we had lunch, there were just a lot of cars. And one day he came over and he was really mad. And he said, if you continue to park your cars there, I'm going to have them towed away. I mean, he was really mad. And everyone was there, and he was shouting, and he was angry, and it just seemed so out of proportion. But we just said, well, okay. And a couple of days went by, and Ananta was out in front of the yard, and our neighbor was there. And he came over to Ananta, and Ananta said, how are you doing? And he said, my wife just died in surgery. So it was totally unexpected. She was not an older woman, and it all made sense. It all made sense. And he, just giving him that space, how are you? Trying to be a part of someone else's reality, trying to understand where they're coming from, what their aspirations are. Why are they doing the things they do? Why are they doing the crazy things that they are doing? And to give them space by just trying to understand who they are on a soul level. That very same man, months went by, and it was Christmas time, and there was a knock at the door, and it was him, and he had this huge, long, round sausage. He didn't know that we were vegetarian, and so we tried to be really excited, but it was very sweet. We had connected, we had gotten through that, and so as much as we can just try to be a part of that other reality, try to be a channel for those divine mother qualities, whoever we are, wherever we are, and to pray to Divine Mother to be a channel for that, to make that our prayer. What greater thing can we do in this life than to utter that prayer and try to make that prayer a reality for ourselves. We look around us and there is such beauty. Someone asked me today, how do you like living here? We've been back here for a year, and I found myself saying this is like fantasy land. It's just, but wherever we are, we loved our time in Sacramento. It didn't matter, but do look at where you live. Look at this place. If you're here visiting, the beauty, the green, the devotees, the people here who love God, and really hold that in your heart as a gift for Divine Mother, but as a gift not just for yourself. It's a gift for everyone. And to make that prayer to be a channel for Divine Mother, to seek God in this life, yes, but not just for yourself, not just for ourselves, but to really try to be that instrument of blessing to all humankind. Thank you.